Hey, and welcome to the highlights of episode number 273 with medical medium Anthony William. Some of my favorite parts of this episode were when he shares with us the secret weapon foods to add to your life, how to overcome fruit fear, why you need to drink celery juice, and the things you must avoid for epic health. But there is so much more wisdom and inspiration that you get in the full episode. So to listen to the full podcast and get all the info in the show notes, head on over to melissaambrosini.com/273 right now. Anthony, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here. I'm such a fan of your work. But for those that might not have heard much about you, can you take us back to when you were 4 years old and tell us what happened to you that changed your life forever?
Yeah, it changed my life forever. And that's an understatement in the sense where I really couldn't run from it. There was no way to run, no way to hide from it. And it started out at age 4, hearing a voice perfectly clear. And that voice was the spirit of compassion. So that's what I was told. And that voice told me what was going on with my grandmother, told me what was going on with everybody else around me as far as what was happening in their health. And the sound from the voice isn't internally. It's not like inside of me. It's on the outside of my ear. So it just couldn't be shut off. It couldn't be turned off. And I could block it. And that voice was just giving me advanced medical information. For example, what happened when I was in elementary school, and here I am, 8 years old, and I have a classmate next to me, and Spirit of Compassion says, well, the classmate has meningitis. And the child was confused and said, I don't even know what that word is. You didn't even know what that word was or what that meant. And I said, no, he has an infection. He actually has an infection. He has a pathogenic infection, and it's creating meningitis. It's creating what is diagnosed as meningitis. All this information was coming through. And so the next day, he didn't come into school. He was in the hospital with 105 temperature. And there was just no way around it. It was just there, and the information was going to come through whether I liked it or not. And so I had to work with it. In 1975, I had to help a family member with a really bad back problem that would never go away with no answers for it. And that's when the celery juice came through. The family member didn't believe on any level in celery juice or celery itself or anything like that. I mean, it wasn't even a question of even thinking that. In fact, it was quite the opposite. It was extremely skeptical on the celery juice. And like, there's no way this is going to help. Don't force me to drink this stuff. But it was improving the condition and improving days. And days later, the back was like, it was like a miracle occurred. So because there's no way to escape it, I had to live with it. I was spouting out all how viruses worked, different varieties of viruses and different undiscovered viruses and pathogens and toxic heavy metals. That this was a bizarre phenomenon to anyone that even heard it. It was just, what are you talking about? And that's not even the information of when I had to do training. I didn't train. I don't have a health coaching degree. I'm not a doctor. I never went to medical school. The training I had to have was literally hard knocks. It was when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, Spirit of Compassion said, you're going into the cemetery. You're going to go into the cemetery every day, and you're going to tell me, how you think people died. And I'm going to also help you and give you information. I was literally doing readings on people that have died and gone, and they're in their graves. And it was like, okay, this person died of a heart attack. This person died of a tragic accident. This person died of a blood clot. This person died of this. And it was like that. And there was nothing easy about it. Nothing easy about my life on that level. And I've had to go through so much with Spirit of Compassion so I can help people. Many people have said to me, why do you wave your hands around their head? Or why do you wave your hands around their body? And it's because I never explain the process. I never tell anybody really the process, because it's not about it all about being me. me. Oh, it's all about me. The medical medium, it's never about that. It's about the people who are struggling, suffering. And then I do my technique. What happens is the reason why I wave my hands around someone like that as I'm listening to spirit is because spirit's sending down light and I'm going blind. I'm just seeing all white light and I push the light around. And as I push that light around, it acts as almost like an MRI, an imaging scan, where I push that light through the person. I'm pushing the light literally through the person. And that's what I'm doing. I mean, I've helped out individually over 250,000 individuals. I work 24/7. I never slept. And I was robbed of a lot of life of my own. People say to me, well, hey, how come you're not working out in the gym all the time and exercising? How come you're not big, buff, and all this stuff? Like, dude, I've been on call 24 hours a day for decades for the suffering and the chronically ill. I would never focused on self-care. What happened was the waiting list got into the millions by 2014 and 2015. So I had to stop working with people and I had to get the books out. Spirit of Compassion said, you have to get the books out. You have to get that information out. And it's critical that it gets to people because chronic illness is rising so fast right now. It's just unbelievable to the degree that it's rising. And when someone says, well, no, I'm not chronically ill. I'm not in my bed dying. I'm like, wait a minute. No. I'm talking about migraines. I'm talking about headaches. I'm talking about aches and pains. I'm talking about sinus congestion that won't go away ever. I'm talking about tingles and numbness, spasms, tremors, twitches. I'm talking about heart palpitations. I'm talking about fatigue. I'm talking about limb weakness. I'm talking about all these things. You keep on going and going and going. And I'm talking about Hashimoto's and hypothyroid, hyperthyroid, diabetes, prediabetes, hypoglycemia. I'm talking about everything. And they're like, wait a minute. You're right. That's chronic illness. Wait, everybody has something wrong with them. Everybody's dealing with something. And we're supposed to pretend it's normal now. It's about truth. I'm talking about spirit of compassion. That truth. Get that truth out there so people have a chance to heal.
Can you tell us, I want to give the listeners things that they can do. What are some of the life-changing foods that we all need to start implementing into our diet?
Well, one thing is what to take out of the diet and without being so constricting either, what to take out of the diet. So the foods that Spirit of Compassion wants out of somebody's diet, it's about what's going on with them. It's about what's happening. For example, eggs. Eggs are actually pathogen feeders. They feed bugs. The reason why I say, which is Spirit of Compassion is really saying you need to take the eggs out of your diet is because those eggs were raised in labs 80, 90 years ago to feed viruses that somehow escaped the labs and got into everybody in the human race and now is torturing everybody. Every single living microorganism on this planet has to eat something or it won't survive. Sorry to break the news. So eggs have to come out. And the same thing with gluten. Nobody knew what gluten did or why. Spirit of Compassion is the only one that knew what gluten did. Everybody has guesses and theories to why gluten causes problems, why that protein causes an allergenic response, why people have issues with it, how celiac works. That's all hypothetically, it's all theories. Gluten actually feeds bugs and and that's how it works. And same thing with dairy products. The proteins and the lactose in dairy feed pathogens. So they actually feed bugs. The gluten feeds bugs. That's why we get sick, or part of why we get sick. You have to have the bugs to begin with. We have to be feeding them. What's the first thing to do to your question originally? You want to get out some of the bad foods, troublemaker foods that call them, because they're not really bad. They're not bad foods. They're troublemaker foods. And what do you need to do? You got to get celery juice in there. Celery juice starts killing off pathogens. It starts destroying them. The sodium cluster salt starts ripping them apart. And that celery juice, the sodium cluster salts in there, a subgroup of sodium undiscovered by research and science, actually goes to the brain and it doesn't just help It's not just an electrolyte, it's a complete electrolyte. It's not just one partial electrolyte. The sodium cluster salts are complete electrolytes. They get to the brain, they restore neurotransmitter chemicals, they help the neurons, they help rebuild neurons, they help loosen up toxic heavy metals that saturate neurons that cause people's anxiety and depression and Alzheimer's and memory loss and all kinds of other stuff. And yeah, it's advanced information, but it works. And don't add anything into your celery juice. I'm going to throw out any tidbits I can for any new listeners or anybody who doesn't know me or does or not. Don't add things into your celery juice. This is a prime example of what goes wrong when you have something so precious come from up above. And it's supposed to be like it is plain celery juice. And people add lemon into it, collagen in it, God forbid. They add, other things into it. They'll add water into it, ice cubes, and they'll just add things into it. They'll dilute the sodium cluster salts. And it's hard. And you know what's sad is if you're an influencer, like you are, Melissa, you're an influencer. I mean, it's a powerful thing to be an influencer. It's a big deal. And when you're an influencer and you then tell 10,000 people that are following you because they look up to you and you're like, oh no, I put lemon in my celery juice every day. And you don't read the books and you don't know anything really about that. It just then it robs somebody's chance. So you get this one girl or one boy that's sitting somewhere with some serious symptoms developing and they're getting really viral and they got like Epstein-Barr and shingles and they're going to, and their mom and dad's taking them to doctor after doctor and they can't do college anymore. They can't start their lives. They can't go out, and live their life. And then they put lemon in it and they're not getting the results they get, then they might shy away and not drink the celery juice. And we just lost one more person to the hell that people go through on the internet looking for so-called advanced alternative medicine stuff and this and that and all kinds of articles and ideas that are all out there. It's a hush-posh of noise and that developed over the years. And then that's the sad part. That's the sad part.
So can you talk about fruit fear? What are the benefits of fruit and what it's doing to us to cut fruit out?
Well, no one ate any fruit. No one eats any fruit. So people just don't experience the benefits because they don't eat fruit. I mean, if you think an apple once a month is eating fruit, then I'm just perplexed. Fruit has been shunned as if it's a problem.
Because of the sugar.
Sugar, because of, that's unbelievable. Our cells we only stay alive because of sugar. And we actually will die without sugar. Literally die. We'll lose our brain function, our brains will shrink, our glial cells won't even function. It's sugar that's the whole point. That's how, why do you think people suffer with diabetes? They can't get the sugar into their cells. It's the only way we can sustain life. Sugar has to enter a cell to keep it alive. It's what our neurological systems actually feed off of. It saves lives. It's antiviral. It's antibacterial. The whole thing about fruit is the minerals and all the phytochemical compounds, the antioxidants and everything. And I remember this doctor saying, you better be eating a lot of fruit. And it reminds me, even though Spirit reminds me all the time, it's good to hear it from a friend or so, because the glucose, we need it for our brain function. That's how a diabetic goes into a coma. That's how the whole diabetic coma, that's how when people are hypoglycemic and they literally start shutting down and can't function if they're just hypoglycemic because they can't get sugar in their cells because something's blocking it, like fat is blocking it or something else is blocking it in the bloodstream. And fats in the bloodstream and so forth, and they can't get it in and they're getting insulin resistance all the time. They can't even get sugar. And, sugar's not to blame. And yeah, you don't want processed table sugar. And you're not supposed to be, chunking down like dehydrated, raw sugar all the time and eating raw sugar. You're not supposed to be doing that. It's not really meant for that to happen like that. But a piece of fruit isn't just sugar. It's got some of that glucose in there, but it's got the antioxidants, it's got phytochemical compounds, the antivirals, the antifungals, the antibacterials, the anti-everything. It's critical because frozen wild blueberries, or if you get fresh wild blueberries or any kind of wild blueberry, that fruit can literally help truly dislodge toxic heavy metals, restore damaged tissue because of its antioxidants that are undiscovered by research and science, help along with the spirulina and the cilantro and other things to pull out of the body. And then when you're doing something like celery juice, another powerful herb, it's another ticket out of chronic illness to help flush it out and bind onto it, disarm it. So back to fruit. Fruit's just one saving grace. Another saving grace is those leafy greens. And then, which the mineral salts and everything else, that different mineral salts that are in leafy greens, different trace minerals and different things. And then you got herbs like cilantro and you got celery juice and so forth. It's like these saving graces are huge to get people better. And then when you take away foods that feed pathogens and you really get those out. And literally, by bringing fruit back in and eliminating a few things that I was told was good for me, it changed everything with my fibroids. It changed everything with polyps. It changed everything with cysts. It changed everything with these things. And so, yeah, it's crazy. The fruit thing is just crazy.
It is so crazy. And I love that you say you've got to eat fruit to make fruit. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, that means that's basically the reproductive system, because that's what you're producing basically as a fruit. You're talking about the womb, you're talking about it being a flower. And then what happens? The flower gets pollinated. And, and then you produce a fruit. There's a lot of similarities on how Earth works, planet Earth works. There's a lot of similarities to how life just keeps on renewing here. The fruit plays that role. It wasn't here on this planet so we can avoid it.
Is there a specific number that you recommend people should eat each day, or is it just whatever your body feels?
It depends. If you don't eat any at all, then just bring in some to start with, because people are afraid too. If they haven't eaten any, then they get afraid. And so bring in a little bit at a time. Take the baby steps. You just take a little bit at a time. If you're someone that likes fruit and you always did, because you had some before and you're like, whoa, these strawberries are amazing. Whoa, these bananas are incredible. Wow, this smoothie tastes good. Then bring in more.
I love that you also talk about angels and the archangels and that we should pray to them. So, for someone who's listening who has never prayed to an archangel or even spoken to one, where should they start and why should they start?
Angels are incredible because the angel of mercy is an angel that I've called upon to help people throughout the years, people that are really suffering and struggling, because there's peace that can be obtained from asking the angelic realm for help. And I always say, ask out loud. Ask out loud. That's what I've always said. And if you can't ask out loud, and the angels will know you can't. If you're too sick to even ask out loud or whisper it, then it's another story. But I've always said, just, speak out loud and ask for the angelic help. Ask for angels to help. I've always seen it be helpful. And I always recommend and tell people to just always do that. And if you want to learn more about the Medical Medium, book 1 has so much angel information. It's so great.
Yeah, it is great. And I absolutely love it. As young as possible, we get this information into people's hands, the better.
Well, the problem is that even in all the alternative medicine and the information that's out there and everything, the belief is still your body attacks itself, causing autoimmune. So it's, how do we get away from that? I mean, the only books that have ever spoke that it's not that theory and it's some other truth has been the Medical Medium book. So even if there's, a great healthy book out there, they still believe either personally or their practitioners that they're best friends with believe it, or the book itself is geared around it, that your body destroys itself, that your body's immune system attacks its glands, creates an autoantibody and destroys its glands, and which none of that is true or been proven, not even proved. That information came out in 1950s. I mean, how did they know what was going on in 1950? They didn't, and they still keep that same old theory. So every woman is disempowered and told that their body's destroying itself and told that their body's immune system's attacking itself by alternative and conventional. It's all the same. It's all the same. It's almost like you're doing different things, but it's the same boss. It's the same mob boss, but you're doing different things. Somebody might be into this therapy and this alternative book and different, but yet the belief above it is always like, well, wait a minute, autoimmune is your immune system going after its glands and organs or skin, like eczema and psoriasis, and destroying it. And there's no cure, there's no true, understanding of it, whatever. It's just your body's attacking itself. So when we're in that zone, there's no freedom. There's really not a lot of freedom.